Hey guys, welcome to another solutions video. This one is for lesson 8, which we went over probably a couple of weeks ago now for sprite properties. And this is where we were introduced to sprite rotation, scale, and the sprite X and Y. So this is going back a little bit. So those of you that still need help with this lesson, this is what this video is all about. So here we go. And remember, you can stop it and rewind it and fast forward it and do whatever you need to do to catch the pieces and points that you need to get done. So the prediction, guys, remember the prediction. I mean, the answer's right there, but we know that the B is going to appear in the bottom right corner because if you look at the X and Y values right there, remember showing the grid is important. We know that we start at 0 and the X goes across and the Y goes down. So we go 0, 100, 200, 300, and then we need 350. So that's half of between 300 and 400. So there's 350, and then 100, 200, 300, 350. So we know for a fact that the B is going to appear right there, bottom right-hand corner. We see the draw sprites there, so there it is. It shows right up. So that's pretty simple. Moving on. Okay, so this one, again, this is just kind of practice with the X and Y values. Now here's one of the problems that a lot of you guys are having on all of the coding assignments. You are running the program and then just not really reading the information that goes up here. Also, this is really important. There are help and tips up here to help you out as well. There's tons of extra information up here. There's the videos, there's the sprite properties, and the things that you might have questions about that you haven't asked me, you can go up to the help and tips and get some information from there as well. Also, guys, when I'm giving the lesson in person, whether you're on Zoom or whether you're in the classroom, that's the time to ask all the questions you need. If there is something you don't understand, then you need to ask me a question. Don't worry about thinking that other people are going to think you're dumb, because guess what? Chances are 3/4 of everybody around you is probably thinking the same question. Okay, so you need to start making sure that you're asking me the questions then. All right? Anyway, so when I run this program, I can see that there is a palette and there is a brush. Now, the instructions tell me to run the program, see where the sprites appear. We just did that. Change the X and Y properties of the paintbrush sprite to move it to the palette. So we can see right here when we show the grid that the paintbrush is located at 300 and 100, and that's it. So we have 0, 100, 200, 300, and then 100. 100. Okay, so that's the Y value. Brush.x is 300, brush.y is 100. That places the brush right here. So what you want to do is you want to move the brush to that it's touching the palette. So if you pick one of these cross areas that's close by, like if we moved the center of the brush to this one right here, that would make it touch the palette. So we just have to figure out what numbers these are. So you count your X value. Remember, X is across, Y is up and down, the same as in math. Okay? So if we look at where this one is located, right up here. So we have 0, 100, 150. So we can see that if we change this X value to 150, it'll put us there. Now, if I run the program right now, the brush is going to be right here. So let's do that. Okay? So there's the brush. We know that we are right where we need to be. So if we move it down so that it is down, the Y value is down here. Now, look at the Y value. Right, if you look down here under show grid, when I get as close to the Y value as I can, we can see that it's 250 automatically. So you go 0, 100, 200, 250. So if we change the Y value to 250, that'll put us exactly where we need to be. And there we go. All right. So you've got to pay attention to the X value and the Y value. And you must read the do this part. This is the part where some of you guys are just going, I don't get it, but you haven't read the do this. All right. Moving on. Okay, so Sprites have lots of properties. Check out the 2 new blocks in this activity and try them out for yourself. Notice that different sprites can use the same animation and still look different because of the properties. So this one is the one with the drum kit on there. So this looks confusing, but if you break it down into its parts, it's really not. So we have these 2 go together, drums, drums. Note 1, note 1, note 1, note 1. These all go together. So we have the variable initialized, we have the picture chosen. Now notice all of these pictures are 8th note. They're all the exact same picture, but the things different on them are the scale. So we have the scale on this one is going to be smaller. It's going to be rotated 20 degrees to the right. We have note 2, note 2, note 2, note 2. So we know that these 4 go together. All right. And we know that the scale on this one, if you just look at the 0.7, that's a little bit bigger than 0.3. So we know that that second note is going to be a little bit bigger. And we can see that it's rotated minus 30 degrees. So it's going to be the opposite of the first one. And then notice what we have for note 3, note 3, note 3. There's no scale or rotation there. So those are missing. And then we have note 4, note 4. And again, no scale or rotation. Those are missing. So if I run the program, I'm going to see a drum kit. And I'm going to see 4 notes along the top. The 2 first notes are going to be smaller, and the 2 second notes are going to be the regular size that the sprite is. So let's run the program. And there we are. All right, so we can see that this one is a smaller scale, 0.3, and it is rotated 20 degrees to the right. Okay, so it's like tilted. We can see that the second note, note 2, is a little bit bigger. Okay, so it's 0.7. And it is tilted 30 degrees to the left. So we can see that. So your job, if you read what the instructions say, use the rotation and scale blocks on the last 2 notes to make them look different too. So we need to add a scale and a rotation after this note 3 and scale and rotation after this note 4. Okay? So let's do that. So you have to always go to your variables, choose the x equals. So I'm going to go under note 3. I'm going to put x equals. And I'm going to do that twice. Okay. So one of these x's I'm going to put in dot scale. One is going to be dot rotation. You know what? While I'm doing this, I may as well do the same for note 4 at the same time because I need to do both of them. So I'm going to put my dot or my x equals under both of them. So now I've made room to add this scale and rotation for each of the second 2 notes. All right, so how big or how small you want them is totally up to you. But the one thing that needs to be the same is you have to have the sprite dot rotation at the beginning, well, at least for the one of them. So let's do scale first, sprite dot scale, and let's do sprite dot rotation. So there's the first 2. We're still not done, but since I'm on this particular part of the toolbox, I may as well do the same for the second one. So we have our dot scale. And we have our dot rotation. All right, it's kind of tricky to get them in the right spot. So now we have all the building blocks that we need. So there's something really, really important that we need to do first. Up here we have, notice up here, note 2, note 2, note 2, note 2, note 3, note 3, sprite, sprite. So we have to change these 2 sprites to match note 3. So you can either just type note 3, or you can copy and paste. So there's note 3, and we're going to do the same thing. You're going to notice here I made a mistake. I need to just kind of move this up a bit so that then the scale and the rotation appear below. So we have note 4 and note 4. All right, so now everything matches. We've got note 1, note 1, note 1, note 1, and then we've got 4 note 2s, 4 note 3s, 4 note 4s. Now you just mess around with the numbers. So you have, you know, if you want to make this, leave this one the same size, you can. If you want to make it slightly smaller, but maybe bigger than this one. So what's a number between 1 and 0.7? Well, you could use 0.8. The rotation, totally up to you. If you want to make it, you know, tilt left, then tilt it a negative number. If you want it to tilt right, then make it a positive number. So I'm going to go on this one and just maybe go like 25. Okay, so that will, when I reset it and run it, whoop, I got a mistake there. What's my mistake? Oh, yes. I haven't added the numbers for these ones. So let's go 0.9 and maybe minus 15. All right, so now I have values in for all of them. If I run it to see what it looks like, there we go. So I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. It kind of makes the notes look random around the top, but I had to add 4 lines of code there, and you have to make sure that your sprites are renamed to match the initialized variables. Okay, moving on. And again, if you need to rewind and look at that again, go ahead and do that. Now the practices. The practices all need to be done from here on out. You have to do all the practices. So this one is just practice with the scale. This is practice with the rotation. So we just did scale and rotation. So let's look at what we got going on here. If I run this program, obviously we have all of these are too big. And we kind of need it to be a progression. We need the small fly, then the bigger fish, then the bigger cow, then the biggest elephant. So it says, do this. Use the scale property to make it look like the picture as close as you can. Make sure that each animal is as big as it should be. Make sure that the fish fits in the pond. Okay? So let's look and see what we got going on here. All right, so we already have our scales already put in here, guys, and they're all set at 1. So basically, we just have to mess around with these numbers. It's trial and error. Some of you guys are getting really upset and frustrated because you think that there's like one way to do it and that you're not doing it the same way I'm doing it. It's trial and error. Try a number. I mean, you're not losing points for trying. People are losing points because they're either not doing it because they think it's too hard, or they're just giving up and not doing it because they think it's too hard. So let's look at the fly scale. Let's make the elephant and the cow a little bit smaller just so that we can see better. So let's make it half the size. So what's half of 1? Well, that's 0.5. And there's the cow scale. Let's make it 0.5. And let's run the program and see what we got. All right, so they are smaller. Now, obviously, we're going to want that elephant to be a little bit bigger. But for the time being, we're just going to leave it. We want this fish to be small enough to fit in that pond there. So let's make the fish, let's make it half the size and see what happens to it. And let's rerun it. And there we go, it fits right in there. Now the fly's still a little too big. So I think if we put them all at half the size, we're on the right track. So let's look at the sample picture. So it actually looks like we have everything the exact size we need, except we might want the elephant to be a little bit bigger. See how the elephant's feet are touching the bottom of the screen? But if you look at the cow's ear is touching the pond just like it is in the sample. So it actually looks exactly the same. So let's mess around with the elephant's scale. So if we put the elephant up to, let's just increase it between 0.5 and 1. So let's go like 0.8 and see what we get there. That looks pretty good. So if we look at it, it's almost exactly like this picture here. I mean, you could make it a tiny bit smaller if you wanted to. So if we tried 0.7, okay, or I bet you I have a sneaking suspicion that the example is using 0.75. So let's look at that. And that looks like it's almost exactly the right one. So those numbers are the ones that show this one exactly. Now, if you're really close, as long as your each animal is progressively bigger, then you get full credit for that. So again, guys, you're just messing with the scale numbers, and the scale code was already put there for you. All right, moving on. The other practice is messing with rotation. So like scale, rotation is kind of hit and miss. You want to mess around with the numbers. Now, you need to understand that there are 360 degrees in a complete rotation or in a circle, right? And you know that if you have the top part of the circle, if you go a quarter of the way around, that's 90 degrees. Another quarter of the way around is another 90 degrees. So 90 plus 90 is 180. Okay, half a 90. So if you want to go in between, then it's 45. This is all stuff that you guys already know. So, but that's just to remind you. All right, and again, also, if you need to turn it backwards, then it would be negative 90, or you could go positive 270. So, like I said, there's more than one way to do this. Okay, so the only thing that you're going to be messing around with is the rotation. Now, there are no rotation codes in here. So if I run the program, we see that all the cars are facing up. All right. So we have to add the rotation code to the program. And that's pretty easy. It's just like we did before. So we want to go to variables, x equals. All right. So we're going to put an x equals for every one of these cars. So we have our top car, left car, bottom car, right car. And let me put one down for this one and one down for this one. So then we need the rotation code. So we go to sprite.rotation. So let's put that in the x's. And again, we're going to be putting that in each one of these in the x value. So I'm all about efficiency. So if instead of going back and forth, I like to do everything at once. So there's all our rotations. Now remember, car top, car top, car top, car top. That one's got to be the same. Now, a quick way to do it, click on it, take your finger, hold the control button down on the bottom left, then press C. That's copy. Then click over Sprite, hold the control button down, press V. There we go. So that's the quick way to do this. So there's a lot of shortcuts. Control C, Control V. Control C, Control V. Whoop. Oh, I messed that one up. So let's go back up here. Control C, Control V, Control V. So now they're all car right. All right, so let's look at what we need these cars to look like. So we need this red car to go from up to the right. Okay, so if it's going to the right and it's only going a quarter of the way around, we know that that's a 90-degree turn. So, so the red car is the left car right here, right? So we got top, bottom, right, left. So the left car we want to be minus 90. All right, we'll try that one out. The green car looks like we don't do anything to it. So that's the top car. So top car rotation, we'll just put 0. Bottom car rotation is totally turned around. So if you go from the top and you go 90 plus 90, that's 180 degrees. So bottom car would be 180 degrees. And you could put positive 180 or negative 180, it doesn't matter. And the car to the right. Now notice the car to the right is not, it's straight up and down right now, but it needs to go halfway between 0 and 90. So halfway between 0 and 90 is 45 degrees. All right, so that should do it. Let's run it and see what we get. Boom. Oh, I see a mistake. All right, what's our one mistake? Well, the one mistake is you can see that this car is supposed to be going the opposite direction. So the left car, we have, oh, why did I put negative 90 there? It should have been positive. I said positive 90, but for some reason I put negative 90 in there. All right, so let's rerun that program. There we go. So we have top car is 0 degrees, then we have 90 degrees, 45 degrees, and 180 degrees in our rotations. So that's how you do the rotations. All right, let's go to the assessment. If you can do all of the practices, the assessment is no biggie. So this one here, guys, the only problem, let me run it. Okay, so let me start this one over because I think I've already done something on here. So, and this is one of the problems that people have. They see this big jumble of code there, and they don't have the ability to kind of chunk it into the pieces together. So let's chunk these into the pieces that they should be in together. So it says run the program, see how big the food is. All right, so obviously the food needs to fit on the plate. Use the sprite properties to scale all the food sprites down so that they fit on the plate. So that seems pretty straightforward. So notice, chunk everything together. We've got fries, fries, burger, burger, dessert, dessert. So we have to put our scales. So we have to have our fries, fries, and then our fries.scale. Burger, burger, burger.scale, dessert, dessert, dessert.scale. If you keep those compartmentalized up here, it makes it a lot easier. So again, we go to variables. Grab our x equals. We're going to put it under fries because we need to put our fry scale here. We're going to grab another one. We're going to put it under our burger because we need to scale our burger down. And then we're going to grab one more and put it under our dessert to scale our dessert down. All right, so we got all three. Then we go to our sprite.scale, just like we did for the last couple. sprite.scale, sprite.scale, sprite.scale. Again, shortcut, we're going to hold Control C, Control V. So fries, fries, fries. Control C, Control V, burger, burger, burger. Control C, Control V, dessert, dessert, dessert. So now it's just a matter of messing around with the numbers, just like we did on the musical scale one, just like we did on the animal one. You know, if we just put them all at half, 0.5, that's going to make them smaller, and then we can adjust it from there. Let's see what we get. Boom. All right, now, to me, that doesn't look right. They need to be a little bit bigger. At least the burger needs to be bigger than everything else. So let's make that burger 0.75 and see how big it looks. That's a little too big. So let's just go 0.7. Still a little too big. Let's make it 0.6. So you see what I'm doing, guys? It's just trial and error. I mean, I don't have an exact answer. It is kind of within a range. So it looks pretty good. So the burger's a little bit bigger. And you can see on here, it kind of looks the same. Let's make the fries a little bit bigger and leave the watermelon the same, the size that it needs to be. So fries, let's put that up to 0.6 and see how it looks. I think that looks pretty good. All right, you could make them a little bit bigger if you want, but as long as everything fits on the plate like that, then you're good to go. All right, guys, this was a long one, but remember, you don't have to watch this whole thing. This is like you can fast forward and rewind. So good luck.